And we are live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the latest episode of the Sling'N podcast. I'm TJ.
And I'm Kent.
And joining us tonight in the hot seat is John Murphy of FPF Training. John, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, man. It is an absolute pleasure to have you. Kent and I have certainly been purveyors and consumers of some of the content you've put out on the internet. And man, let me tell you, you're an articulate son of a bitch.
Well, I'm fucking glad to hear that.
Absolutely, man. Start. Yeah. So, John, we like to start off every episode with giving our guests an opportunity to properly introduce themselves. So, John, for the folks at home and those that might be listening to this on podcast, please tell the world, who the hell are you?
Well, I am the guy from small town northern Michigan, bumbled his way through the military a little bit, finds himself working for a government agency on the brink of retiring. My daily routine is I wake up, I go to work, have my cup of coffee, curl into a fetal position, weep in front of my computer screen for about 8 hours, and then come home and think about good people and helping them get better and take care of themselves. Work out a bit. I was doing pretty good in the gym until the Rona hit, and now suddenly cardio is the order of the day for a while longer. I mentioned I'm in the brink of retirement, and it's the 30th of January when I hit the road and start driving around the country.
I'll tell you what, man, that sounds like a lot of people's dreams right there. Just to say, screw it, forget the 9 to 5, I'm doing my own thing, and I'm going to travel around the world in a Winnebago.
Well, in my case, it's a coachman. But I'm told to be a successful RVer, you have to have a sense of humor and a toolkit. And I'm envisioning doing a lot of stuff on the side of the road, on the fly, as it were, parts replacements. It will afford me the vehicle I bought has a 130 cubic foot garage in the back. So when I arrive on a range, I will have tables, chairs, awnings, and targetry and props that other instructors that rely upon the flyaway model, which I've done, they just can't bring that that part of their home range with them. So I'm hoping to kind of differentiate myself in that fashion. There are a lot of really shitty instructors out there, and I had to strike out in a different pathway to help people make informed decisions, which is a huge part of armed self-defense. When you read newspaper accounts of people screwing it up, and they are out there all over it usually boils down to a decision based upon ego or poor training. And I like to attack or approach both problems in my training set.
I think that's a solid approach. So, folks, for those of you listening at home, you can find John on the internet at fpftraining.com and at FPF Training on Instagram. Links, of course, will be down in the description below. So, John, why don't you take a minute and explain to the folks exactly what FPF, talk about your mission statement. What are some of your areas of focus? What do you specialize in, if anything, or are you kind of a jack of all trades?
I've derived a business model and approach to this to fill what I perceive as a really big void in the marketplace of skills beyond the gun. So my flagship class is concealed carry, street encounter skills, and tactics. It starts off with a 4-hour video view ahead, which isn't as painful as you might think. I've recently been told I'm an articulate son of a bitch. Pretty decent PowerPoint presentation. Lots of video illustrations to make my point about the what awareness really means, the speed of violence. I will borrow some verbiage from my departed friend William April, looking for off-ramps. And then from Craig Douglas, filters. Filter, looking at events through various filters, and it helps reveal intent. After that is foundations laid via those videos. At the start of a class, it's another presentation to bring things to speed. Then I do a quick stop the bleeding block. Tourniquets and pressure dressings. It's not brain surgery. And if we're going about in our lives equipped to start bleeding, well, we may encounter it in ourselves or others. Then I will go down a path, a presentation on pepper spray to give people an alternative force option, and to borrow from Chuck Hager, something other than something between a magazine dump and a harsh word, or a harsh word and a magazine dump. Then we'll go out and I'll move into what I call street and counter skills curriculum. The genesis, I will go back to John Farnham, who taught me about talking to Goofy. And that goes way back. We had like candles and flintlock pistols when I took that class, and we were happy. Moving on from that, I think other people have brought that even forward. I'll throw it out there again. Craig Douglas is very formative in my development in that regard with this managing unknown context paradigm. And that was, well, Craig has built the pyramid upon which he stands astride. Definitely a giant in our industry. With that knocked out, I now have someone that can stop bleeding and has a ability to run their mouth a bit to maintain distance. And then it's time to move into and employ a less lethal option with pepper spray. And then we move into what I call the BIB curriculum, or brilliance in the basics. It's just coming out of the holster, reliably, consistently, getting that first accurate shot. Because if you watch many online video, active self-protection, for instance, John Korea's, that first shot into the giggly bits pretty much tends to set the pace for the remainder of the engagement. So that I place a lot of emphasis on that first accurate shot. That's pretty much end of day one. Day two, we start doing things of we'll run some bill drills. Now I'm gonna spoil a little bit, little leg. I will time how quickly people can stop shooting based upon a visual stimulus. Because we want to avoid that extra two. We're all proud of that 0.15 second split that we worked so hard on. But once we've fired, we've achieved the fact, and we can't stop shooting in time. Well, we need to have a metric, a gauge in how quickly we can do that sort of thing. I will use all kinds of other means. I'll introduce movement, both just to get off the line of force, and then others to incorporate other techniques to defeat our adversaries, our assailants' perception of the situation. And I'll borrow a Colonel Boydism here to bust his OODA loop. I'm told that Colonel Boyd hated the acronym when he pronounced as OODA. So in deference to that, I'll say OODA, observation, orientation, decision, action. If you accept the paradigm that is this guy's 45th armed robbery, and victims 1 through 44 stood there and complied. If we can violently depart that script, push him out of his perspective of how this has always gone in the past, then things can start going our way quickly. I do a lot of that.
I like that. It's interesting. People can, just because they're in their first armed violent encounter, they apply that mental frame of reference to the individual who's visiting violence upon them in the first place, right? And of course, we know that's not true. We know that individual, to borrow from Gibbons, right? While you were in high school, this guy was in juvenile, and while you were in college, this guy was getting his state prison degree, right? So the chances of this being his or her first violent armed physical encounter with another human being is pretty slim to none. And myelination works both ways, right? The muscle memory, quote unquote, he's got that too, and he's used to you doing what you're supposed to do and being a good little victim and complying. And then when you do some John Murphy shit, pepper spray him in the face and leave in your RV, all of a sudden that just doesn't make sense to him. It's just
off into the sunset or the sunrise, as the case may be.
Right.
If I could borrow again from William April, and I'm going to take a sidetrack here. What a tremendous loss his death was to our community. Just an intellect, yep, and just a mensch of an all-around hell of a guy. He would talk about one of the biggest mistakes that we can make is to project our morals, ethics, and values onto these people.
Yep.
And that's what puts us so far behind the curve in our interactions with them. I'm working my way right now through Varg Freeborn's book.
That's a great one, isn't it?
Oh, isn't it though? And the perspective that he offers, having been raised in that environment, well, Kansas, Toto, we're not in Kansas anymore.
Yep.
And most people do not appreciate that there are a large segment, there are cultures within our society. And that is the norm. And when we interact with them, we are at a significant disadvantage. And that's the other part of my video series, View Ahead, criminal assault pre-incident indicators. It's number 4 in my series. Just to give an idea of what it looks like before it happens. I'll say I am not the guy that you come to take half a second off your draw stroke. I'm the guy that my forte, my intent is to give you that 3 or 4 seconds to see it coming.
Yep.
Which I think is probably even more valuable.
Yeah. Being the guy that wants to work on his draw stroke and splits and all that all the time, I recognize the value, and you're correct, because we can be as amazing, shit hot, lightning fast as we want to be when we know it's coming and we're primed for the beep and we're standing there and we've gone through our right. We've gone through that whole like stand by. Right. Yeah, we've done the Mr. Miyagi shit. Absolutely. It's a whole nother thing to, start your encounter with something that surprises you entirely.
Like for instance, hey, motherfucker!
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
What? And that's why I do use the voice. I do use the language to induce. I hate to use the term inoculate.
Sure, stress inoculation.
But to expose people to that, because if the first time you've experienced that sort of thing is at the sharp end, they will achieve their desired end state of shocking you into inaction for that moment.
Yep.
And then they further go ahead.
No, it's okay. I saw you having a thing there. Meanwhile, it'd be amazing if we could have like Pocket Pro put "Hey motherfucker" to come out of the timer instead of beep. Wouldn't that be awesome?
Whoa. Now that
shit. Patent it.
That could be. Now what I will do is I will go from visual. I will start some strings of fire with visual cues, and how I do that, I have red and green lasers. And I use that to scale force decisions. I started out with SIRT pistol, but that didn't have enough wattage, as it were, on sunny days. So those little Chicom, laser pointers, red and green, they work really great, and it gives me a chance to scale a scenario. And I'll accompany the color with verbalization as well, to kind of paint a picture for the student at that moment of what is an appropriate force decision. Can I just walk away from this thing? And I want everything's on the table, and there's no right and there's no wrong. There's just an after action, like, okay, you did this, why? Explain that to me. And if they can give me a rational explanation of why they embarked upon that course of action, then mission accomplished.
I like it. I learn something every podcast, and I do one of these things, right? So laser pointers as visual indicators just went into my phone notes. I love that idea. Credit where credit's due, of course, but it's always really neat to. I'm sitting here going, now how in the hell does he use a visual indicator to stop somebody from shooting? Now I get it, right? You go from green, red. You should have stopped, and you didn't stop, and.
The timers I use actually have a silent function on them, and I'm probably within a couple hundredths of a second, but I can push the laser and the timer at the same time, more or less, plus or minus, and gives. If you are adherents to the Force Science Institute findings, it takes about a quarter of a second. Mm-hmm. Well, in my experience, it's about a quarter of a second. I have had some very high-end competitive shooters who are very proud of that .10 split. Mm-hmm. And until I explained to them that those extra 5 shots you cranked off, one of them hit the driver of the bus full of nuns. Yep. Because your target had long since dropped away.
I've been looking for a way to convey that in a flat square range setting. for a minute, and I hadn't thought of something as good as that. So good on you. I like it a lot. It's interesting. It's interesting when you hear. I'm sure you're familiar with like Jared Reston's story, right?
Oh yeah, holy cow!
You're familiar with the story he told about shooting a cadence and splits, and he T-boxed the guy, and the guy fell, and he ripped another round or so over the guy's head, and it just so happened to go into a concrete stanchion instead of God knows what, right? I don't know if you've ever heard him tell that one.
I have not, but that would be a come to Jesus moment.
Yeah, and he's standing there. He told this, I think, on Practically Tactical's podcast. He's yet to have been on ours, but he will be someday.
He will be yours. Oh yes.
Oh yes. Right. But he said this on Practical Tactically, and he's like, man, I'm standing there looking at a big divot in a concrete stanchion that could have easily been God knows what, right?
If you take a class from Wade and Darryl of the hits guys, they are big advocates of the 0.5 second split.
Okay.
Because that gives enough processing time to ensure accuracy. If you're shooting that precisely at that time, you're probably going to be achieving very good ballistic result. It just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I've played with both ends of the spectrum, right? I've done the competitive shooting thing. I've got my groove on, and went as fast as humanly possible, and then worked on what decision making actually looks like. And I'll admit, there's times I know for sure that the only reason I stopped shooting 6 or stopped shooting 5 or stopped whatever the predetermined drill amount was because I knew that that's how many I was supposed to shoot.
The course of fire is
right. Exactly. You're gonna send 6 rounds in a spill drill. Yay! I got a 198. Cool story. What if it only required 5? So, yeah, it's a topic that's of value for sure. So one of the things that I've heard about you from third parties is that you're very good at bringing new people into the fold. Shooters or defensive carriers who haven't been doing this for a long time. You want to talk about that for a little bit?
Absolutely. We have to reach up, across, and down. And a lot of people will achieve a certain level of instructorhood, and they look past the people that are, the larger part of the market, the people that really need to be brought in more than anyone else, because we got to grow the numbers. That's where the growth is, and that's where ultimately our salvation and security is. Outreach to them is just making sure they understand that there's, without busting their balls, there's, to borrow a phrase from Secretary Rumsfeld, there's no knowns, unknown knowns, and known unknowns. And if you can impress upon somebody just 2 or 3 things that they had never even thought about as they start down this path, they will realize it is a never-ending process. And once you get that natural curiosity going, and the desire to know more, and the fact that there's never really enough, well, then that's the goal. We good?
Yeah.
I'm all set. I'm just listening.
Oh, all right.
My baby's upstairs crying. I'm trying.
Oh, all right.
Okay. I just texted my wife and said, "Are we good up there?" And she said, "Yes."
Then I asked if we're good, so we're good all the way around. All right.
I had a moment.
Everyone's fine.
Did you guys not hear that or what? Because holy crap, he was.
I think I picked up a little bit of it, but
man, sorry about that.
That's all good.
Little dude's rarely that loud at this time of night. I thought maybe he fell or hurt himself or something.
Or he's like, right on, John. Fucking A, man. That's right. Bring it into the fold.
Got his own cheerleader up there. And folks, I want to make something clear to people. So, having my background, in the military and military intelligence, and even today in corporate America, like I'm sure many of you, I am surrounded by PowerPoint slideshows and presentations and briefings. I am certainly not new to the concept of being waterboarded via Microsoft PowerPoint. With that being said, one of the things that has always interested me about John and the FPF training curriculum is if you look through some of the videos on YouTube, they are out there. you can actually catch at least snippets of John's presentations. And I will tell you what led me to that whole "you're an articulate son of a bitch" is that I was actually engaged. Like you would think, oh, it's another dude going over a PowerPoint slideshow. No, John, I got to tell you, and I'm going to tell you straight to your face, your delivery style is very clean. It is articulate and it's engaging. And it actually, the way you deliver that content made me want to hear more about what you had to say. So take that as, take that as a review of sorts, that the training curriculum that you guys are going to receive, if you take the classes from John here, you're certainly going to come away from it a smarter dude or dudette, whatever the case might be, whatever you identify as that afternoon.
I appreciate that, and the lesson I learned from that whole enterprise was, if I do something like that again, I have to break it up over the course of a couple of days, because I found myself eventually around like hour number 5 making the videos, I started catching myself reading off the slides, and which is a classic mistake. And I'm reasonably certain that the vast majority of people in this country can read on their own. I should have been talking more to the yes. I should have been talking more to the. This is like the later in the series. I should have been talking more to the points rather than like just barfing out the points again. But I have got a lot of positive feedback from the video series. I've got some more stuff in the can. I'll be popping up pretty soon before I go on the road here at the end of January. And along with my video blog, I talked about during the pre-show, it's going to be called On the Road to the Range. And it's going to discuss my various travels and travails as I drive about this great land of ours, from Florida to Seattle to LA and back to Culpeper, Virginia. Various venues, instructors, classes I hope to take, classes I'll be teaching, and maybe points of interest to people in our community. I want to go back down and take a hard look at the battleground of cow pens in South Carolina. That is a largely unappreciated battle, and it was operational art. From a military guy perspective, it's kind of cool. Anyway, there's a lot more video content coming from me in the near future.
That's good to hear. I don't suppose you'll be standing up a Patreon and doing things like that. So that
I know I should, but I just can't. Then it is. I've got to crank out content because
fair enough. Yeah. I hear you.
On the other hand, I've come rather accustomed to eating. That's become a thing, and
Right.
I like various bills and whatnot. So eventually, people will probably prevail upon me to do a Patreon or some of the kind of like a paid account type thing. But mostly, I just want to throw videos out there to get people talking about this sort of thing from a different perspective, rather than the latest Blastomatic 2025, the latest bullet design. We will be better served, I think, by an emphasis on soft skills.
Yep.
And that's kind of why my market niche, what I hope to achieve.
Well, and I think that's an excellent approach, right? And no discredit to any of the other fine instructors that we've had on the podcast, but I can sling a dead cat. Dare I say, even sling a live cat, and hit a instructor that foundationally focuses on performance. There are at least from my perspective, at least, there seems to be very few by comparison, those that show kind of take kind of a continuum of force approach to it. As you said, the kind of starting with the street smarts, going to the verbal skills, less than lethal options, and then ultimately, medical options, of course, and then lethal application. So what that says to me is you're more than just a
one-trick pony.
You're more than just a one-trick pony. You're more than just a shooter. You are a student of combat.
That is actually a really good point. Someone else pointed out that I've taken my military background, infantry guy, then intelligence, and I'm back in my day. I prepared to fight Russian tank divisions in the Fulda Gap. or up in Norway or wherever. And if we have weapons and skills blended into tactics, it's the same thing. We're just scaling down to an interpersonal micro war problem, and that's kind of what I've done with this thing.
Note number 2: micro war. Man, this is like taking a class. I love this. This is great.
And my Patreon account is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and there's another aspect to it too. You know, I would even venture to surmise that a vast majority of the people that take concealed carry courses and advanced studies in firearms performance and weapons manipulation and marksmanship, generally speaking, are coming from a place where they don't necessarily live in an overly hostile environment. Now, granted, I'm sure we could break that down further by region, right? Predominantly, people that live in the south side of Chicago are going to have come from a violent area. But if we look at the nation as a whole, and the people that attend these classes, the people that actually have a real dyed-in-the-wool, evidence-based concern that they may encounter violence or have encountered violence is certainly in the minority of that group. With that being said, and you said the point was made perfectly with inoculation, right? A guy like me, despite my military background, you take my military background and experience out of the equation. I live in a small, borderline rural community in Middle Tennessee. I'm not worried so much about every day about, oh my God, am I going to get mugged today? Am I going to get carjacked? Is there going to be a protest? Hell, if we see an Antifa member here, he's probably getting dragged behind a truck. Okay, that's where I live. It's nowhere small, small population, etc. Being introduced to the concept that somebody is here to do violence against you, it is not going to start with a beep. It is going to start with a, hey, motherfucker, or, some other violent action, point them out, knock them out. Games are popular, I know, things like that. That is a solid value in and of itself. I mean, you could probably build an entire curriculum just on introducing people to what really happens in the street.
Interestingly, TJ, the only thing I take umbrage with of what you just said was if somebody wasn't listening carefully, they could have misconstrued your point to mean that it don't happen here, right? And it does. I know that wasn't where you were going with this, but oftentimes people use their their personal life circumstances, their privilege, their man, I live in a good place, a good neighborhood, a nice area. Man, this don't happen here. And number one, yeah, it does. And number two, you're not getting your facts and your stats from the right place when you think that way. If you're leaning upon, national crime statistics to tell you what happens in your backyard. And John, I see you're raring to go on that one. So hammer down, buddy. Go ahead. I'll let you do it instead of me.
We have to be careful to understand that anybody can become violent. Again, I'm going to go back to William April. Jeez. I took his Violent Minds, Violent Acts lecture. Everybody has a murder switch or a fight switch. And think about the last road rage incident you were involved in. And I was just a week or two ago driving down I-95 here. There's a bridge south of me over the Occoquan River. It is a notorious choke point. About 5 years ago, there was a road rage incident there involving a semi-truck, tractor trailer, and a Porsche, if I must. It pulled over and went to guns. The Porsche driver, his kid was strapped in the car. So here I am, fat, dumb, and happy, caught in this traffic going over this bridge. I need to change lanes. I look in my rearview mirror. There's a truck coming. And I turned the blinker, I turned. He came up, gave me the whole honk in the horn, pulled alongside me, threw his lunch at me, and drove on. But and that's just a truck driver. God knows what kind of mental stresses he was under. You can encounter someone in a parking lot dispute. Someone can go territorial. Someone driving an upscale SUV as my experience recently might be. Someone that you would never possibly expect would get violent or go crazy over something like that. And it gets territorial over those little yellow lines and saving that extra minute and a half to walk into a store. There are shades of violence, and there are violent neighborhoods, there are violent acts and violent actors. The stuff that we would encounter with our segment of society isn't as frequent or as violent, but it is not present. It's there. It is there. And where I live right now, it's known that people cross the river, the Potomac, and come over here, and they commute to work, as it were.
Yep. No, of course they do.
And let's not misconstrue. Do not let my what's the best word I'm looking for? Do not let my naivete confuse you all. Despite where I live, despite how arguably peaceful, my perception of where I live and work and play is, I still don't leave home without my gun.
There it is.
No, man, of course you don't.
Right.
I know that's what you weren't saying, but there's a couple students of mine that I can just hear going, "Oh, you see?" And I'm like, "Nah, motherfucker, ain't nobody letting you up from this nonsense. It's gonna happen at some point, at some time. You have no idea how close you were to it, and only by the grace of God or by your awareness did you move away from it."
Yeah, exactly.
And we can't. Oh, go ahead.
An incident I had. This is after I've been trained with Farnham and McCann and several others. I was taking a Persian Farsi class in downtown DC, Middle East Institute. I would go to school, go to the bathroom, get my stuff in my briefcase, get my Farsi on, and then after class go back to the bathroom and get back to my truck and go home. Well, one night I'm in a hurry to come home, and it's every time I'm in a hurry and I violate the TTP, I get slapped every fucking time. So the hubris just gets knocked out of me. So I come down the steps, I turn to the left, I'm walking back to my truck, and I'm conjugating the Persian verb to see in my mind. Didan, midi, midi, midan. And I come to consciousness in time to see two guys in the sidewalk, one facing me, one facing away. And they're maybe 20, 25 feet away. The guy facing me nods his head. The guy facing away went like that. And I'm like, oh, that what Kelly McCann would call that movement associated with your arrival onto the scene. And you run away with this was going to turn into. And I had a moment of eureka, I know what this is. And I got ready for it. And I'm not going to belabor the point, but nothing. I blew past, got past. They touched a little bit. I got out of that, and I moved on to my truck and went home. The next week at class, I asked, "Hey, did anybody see those two guys?" And there was a girl in the class, a longtime DC resident. And she said, "Oh yeah, I saw them. I crossed the street."
Don't you love that?
Yeah, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, hey, yeah. How about some of that?" Now I thought, what kept me on that sidewalk? Toward heuristic completion. It was A to B, A to the school, B to my truck. And when I saw the problem, what kept me on that was testosterone and pride, which in combination can be lethal.
Mm-hmm. Interestingly enough, that's one of the predominant reasons that males under 21 are not allowed into bars, and women women 18 and above are allowed into bars.
Yeah, that's what you would call a clue.
Also why men's car insurance is higher until they hit a certain age.
So we got a killer question in the chat. It's always nice when we have people doing our jobs for us and asking our guests questions so we don't have to. Landon Nelson of the Apache Solutions crew, one of the two dudes who didn't meet this past weekend. One was with me taking a med class, and the other one was, Landon, probably at work or somewhere. Does the idea of intellectual processing over physical performance seem to be a new methodology being brought to the training industry, or was it lost and you're bringing it back?
I won't say lost. I would say de-emphasized. There's always an element of every basic concealed carry course, anytime you talk about use of force, somebody has to throw something out there. Usually as a fig leaf to say, yes, we discussed it. But it becomes such a huge point of failure, both in the decision process and any subsequent legal action. I mean, everything is going to come back to that moment. Mens rea, the whole 9 yards. What were you thinking? Why did you do that? Was the concept of preclusion even discussed in people's training? Generally, it isn't. Getting someone to, part of the program I have is getting someone to divorce themselves from performing for performance's sake at that moment and scaling appropriately. And I'm incorporating now like walk away drills. Like, yeah, yo, bro, you got it. You're right. You are so totally right. I'm out. Have a pleasant night, man. It's hard to get young men to do that. And I am 58.5 years old, and occasionally now I have to swallow a little bit. It has to be a whole spectrum approach. The intellectual part, I mean, when you go back and read from the back in the day, the Hickox, guys like that, world's deadliest men, and accounts from that, there was a whole lot of intellectual work going into that sort of thing. Something I think got lost along the way. I don't know if it was and I don't mean this as a slam or blank or straight otherwise on the competitive community, because they have certainly, but it all became, when performance got quantified and we had a chance to score things, I think that might have drove us down this path. You all must have seen, it's an ancient video on YouTube. It was the LA County Sheriff's Office qualification course circa 1935. Have you seen that? Have you seen that video? It's fucking amazing. You had soft skills, hard skills. You shot bullseyes, and then you shot scenarios. And think about how law enforcement training has devolved somewhere around the mid 60s, I think, into the mid to late 90s, where the devolution to now is, I think, maybe I would defer much more to Chuck Haggard and Greg Lefferts and Daryl and Wayne on this topic, Lee Weaves, but it seems to be making a resurgence. The thinking part is coming back, and I'm hoping that blends over into our world, because it has to. Every time one of us makes a mistake with a gun,
yep,
it fuels the other side, and let's make no mistake, fellas, they mean to end us.
Yep. No, you're 100% right about that. The hard lines in the sand have been drawn on that topic for quite some time. They're not kidding, and they're not here to compromise. So, any little, I'm sure you've seen the cake analogy, right? Like,
oh yeah, I want my cake back.
I want my goddamn cake back. Right? That's the whole thing, right? We can't just keep giving up crumbles, and the fewer mistakes and the fewer stupid decisions and the fewer bad outcomes that we have, the more likely we'll be in that scenario.
On that topic, if I can delve a bit, another thing, storing the guns at home. Every time there's a gun storage failure, there's a tragedy. And if you take a class or listen to Paul Sharp at all, a simple craftsman's, if you can't afford a gun safe, well, a craftsman's toolbox and a master lock will go a long way. It won't necessarily prevent your gun from being stolen, but will prevent those unauthorized hands to laying hands on your pistol. Another recurring theme I've seen in failure in this regard is purse carry and children accessing guns from purses. About 2 years ago, a woman was shot in the back. Her kid was in the back seat in the car seat, got in her mom's purse, and cranked around through her seat into her. There's just, these are other things. It's software errors, and it should be like hour one, day one of any instruction program. And that's another another gap that we got to reach together and fill it, fellas. We just got to do it.
Yeah.
Well, and the downside, just the one in the back seat of the one in the car is one thing. I mean, there was one similar instance where the woman had the gun carrying off body in her purse. Her toddler reached in the shopping cart. Reached in, grabbed it, and shot mom right in the chest. It's a avoidable tragedy.
What's funny is this is realer to me now than it has been in the past, right? I'm watching my wife, who is still armed at this moment of the evening, and will continue to be until she decides that it's actually time for bed, climbing around on the floor with my little boy who turns 1 tomorrow, and watching her knowingly manage his hands and his access to her waistline. And I think to myself, Jesus Christ, how many people don't know this? How many people have not even begun to think of this? How many people?
I'm going to throw another name out there for you right now. Melanie Lauer.
Yes.
Citizens Defense Research Group. I had her in a class, and I've taken her class, hosting them a couple of times. And I watched her when she was podcasting way back in the day. She talked about how hard it was when she was feeding her kids to clean baby yak out of a holster.
Yep.
And I'm like, Jesus, that would have never occurred to me in 5 eternities, that eventuality. She is a profound intellect. I love that woman to death. She's amazing.
Yep. It's, it's the most, who's the most likely person to defend the most important person in my world, right? That little guy is the most important person in my whole universe. It ain't going to be daddy with his 13.13 splits that's doing the work. It's going to be Mama Bear, and God love her, right? Because she can do some work, and, we all need to get better, and everybody needs improvement. But I look at, as I leave my house and I kiss my family and my kids goodbye, and I say, all right, honey, I'm headed out. I really don't have as much to worry about as a lot of people do. And that's a blessing. And, that's no hero worship or whatever, but my God, imagine the ladies and the households and these guys that are leaving their family and their loved ones, and, the damn gun's just sitting on a freaking dresser somewhere because, mama's got to have a gun. And my Lord, what are you inviting into your home? The chances of that going from good idea to tragedy are pretty fucking good, actually.
Another Murphy story. I was living in San Clemente with another sergeant, a block away from the beach. I will never have it that good again. Anyway, I go to work. My roommate goes to work. He doesn't lock the door. Next door neighbor was a single mom with a little girl. She got away from mom, tried our door, got into the apartment, closed the door, and locked it. She never left the kitchen. But fellas, I'll tell you, I would have never thought it remotely possible that a child would have had unrestricted access to my cocked and locked 1911 on top of my nightstand back in my bedroom. It just never occurred to me. Those little people will pop up in the craziest places and do the craziest things. And I that's how I learned. Nothing bad. I just was shown Jesus at a low cost.
Love it. P.S. The T-shirt from tonight's show is those little people will pop up in the damnedest places and do the craziest things. So there is that. TJ, if you could make that in sizes medium through holy shit, that'd be fantastic. It's interesting to think through those eventualities, and it's going to happen at some point. If you leave your defensive tools in such a state, unrestricted access is almost a guarantee at some point. Now, whether it turns to tragedy or not is between you and Krishna or whoever the hell you're praying to.
Take your pick,
right? But man, I'll tell you what, I don't like those odds. I'd just as soon restrict and limit that access. And yeah, you're right. It has to be taught. And those of us out here doing the thing with the new students and the teaching and the training and the classes and the whole thing, right? My goodness, we have the gamut of of crazies and questions and things that people don't even consider this stuff, and you lay it on them, and God Almighty, you just hope that 15% of it sticks in the gray matter somewhere.
And that's a high percentage.
Yeah, I know.
Getting people to commit to the pathway. I'm having a bit more success, but they cannot understand that it's just a one and done. And they must understand it's not just a one and done.
Yep.
And then it is imperative that they seek other perspectives and other opinions on the same topic.
Yep.
I was just exposed, to Tim this past weekend from Apache Solutions, and frankly, he put a wrench on my ass and tightened me up on the topic. And I usually start a class. I'll say I will learn more from my students than you will learn from me. Very much so. This go around. It's too important though to have a guru.
Absolutely.
And then there are cults of personality that drive that sort of thing. If as a community we are not routinely passing people off to other our friends, not our friends, but our competitors, it doesn't. If they're the best in their field, well then they should get that tip. We just need to grow together, and it's going to be hard because there's people involved and there's egos involved, and on top of that, there's dollar signs involved. But if someone is safe and competent, but an asshole, well, 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Right. Absolutely. It's interesting when instructors take other instructors' classes and that trainer says to you, hey, what'd you think? Hey, give me honest feedback. At the end of the class, what's something I could improve? Or the more professional longevity approach would be to get some time and space and separation from the class and sit down and write out an AAR and be good enough to give it to that person. And I know the guys at Apache do that because been there.
And I got from him. Yep.
Right. And absolutely, and that's something that he's want to do. And those of us that do it, when it's well received, right? When you take a guy's class and he says, "Hey, what do you think?" and you go, "Man, I'll get back to you. Give me some time. I got an iPad full of notes here. Don't worry, I got you." To receive it as well as you obviously have is a credit to a level of maturity and a seriousness to the craft, rather than to take it as a shot to ego or as a who the hell is this guy, or how dare he, or any level of machismo response, rather than
Steel. I'll borrow a quote from my friend Brett Harnish from Justified Defensive Concepts. Steel sharpens steel.
Yeah.
And that's where we are. And this you use the word craft, and that's exactly what this is. And if we approach it from a guild perspective, or a this is mine perspective, well, that paradigm is just not going to make it anymore. We have to reach out up, down, left, and right.
I like that.
Obviously, there are instructors that I would not piss on if they were on fire, because they fail. They're not relevant. They're not safe, and they're assholes.
Yep.
0 for 3. I don't need that. The people I care about, and I tell them at the end of the class, if I bit you in the ass, it was love. If you have come to me for the purpose of what I do, then you are entrusting me with your most valuable possession.
Yep.
Your very life. So I cannot fail in that regard. And it has to be with eyes wide open, clear-eyed observation of the truth. And that's all there is.
That's awesome. So that being said, let's talk about your past weekend experience a little bit, since we brought it up. You were teaching a vehicle defense. Your POI was vehicle defense based, is
right?
That right?
So here we go. I might as well. Yes, it was. It's concealed carry vehicle environment skills, and my intent was to take it from a perspective of much more the soft skill approach. Post-car accident, road rage avoidance, and with a little touch now, an ode to what's going on around our country, where people are getting surrounded. I'm sure you all must have seen the video of the Prius in Los Angeles.
Yep.
That kind of drove around. And how did that end up? Who got the felony stop?
Yeah.
So I laid that out from that perspective. I talked about the vehicle environment itself, the confined draw stroke. I tried to impress upon people time and timing. When you are confined in that manner, you are just not going to have the physical capacity. If you are hard stopped or soft, you can't drive away. Your perfect firing line presentation, which you probably crank out in 1.2, well, that's going to be different because now you've got to defeat the belt. You've got whatever else you got going on. You got the steering wheel. Depends upon the angle. So we did some of that in the class. I showed people exactly how much coverage you can get visually from an A pillar, and what I mean by not cover from incoming rounds, but visual obstruction.
The goalie effect.
Yeah, well, exactly. People, if they can approach you on that A pillar, and you are not going to see them until they move left or right into your line of vision.
Yep.
Just some of that. Shot out of the car a little bit. We talked about barrier impact on ballistics. I had some verbal diarrhea, which Tim caught me up on, and I'm going to blast out to the class here shortly and get that unbooked. It was a good class. I think people got a lot out of it. Just from the perspective, it's just avoid that sort of shit. Be bigger than the situation. Give up the parking spot. Someone cuts you off. Give it the mea culpa, man. Yes, you're now going to be 15 seconds late for you to pick up your kid, as opposed to in the back of a black and white getting hauled away to be subjected to a grand jury's thoughts on what you did at that moment.
Yep. No, the doctrine of the reasonable man. Who the hell is the reasonable man? I don't know too many anymore.
If you take any Masadi Youth's classes, and I'm hosting him again shortly, and there's another guy. I mean, it's hard to put it in perspective for myself. I was reading him when I was like 18 years old, and that was over 40 years ago.
Right.
Like anybody else, he has his detractors along the way, but he has an established body of work that you can pick and choose whatever you like. Anyway, I would highly commend that sort of class. There's others out there now that are doing much the same, but I think, is still atop of that pyramid. And the reasonable man, knowing what you knew at that moment, you did what a reasonable person would do. If you are able to frame your actions throughout any kind of interaction or event in that fashion, then short of an absolute political persecution by a prosecutor, which is entirely possible these days, you will not be found wanting.
Yep. The thing that so many shooters, defensive-minded or otherwise, fail to realize is that the hard work comes after the fact, right? So we've done the thing, right? My dumb ass spends 3-4 days a week practicing doing the thing. What's the thing? Oh shit! Draw the gun, press the pistol, see you go. Oh my god, there's a dot. Bang, bang, bang. Yay, I win. Great. Now what? Now what is you're about to go through the next 2 years of your life? If we're lucky, right? In absolute financial, political, social, moral, whatever hell.
There's even a layer of the post thing before that the pre-post thing. All right, you're going to have your initial law enforcement interaction.
Yep.
And how that goes can be very much how you put the first spin on this on your situation. Who reports seeing what, and in what manner did they report it? The actual, I will call it essentially the battle handover when the officer arrives. And I've got examples of it going swimmingly well, to include holster guns and handshakes. And there are examples of people being shot dead that were actually the good guys.
Yep.
And there's just so many layers. Oh, pardon me, out to their world. A little carbonated drink going on. There are so many layers to this that people don't appreciate beyond the beep.
Yep.
I got the beep. I've done the thing. There we go. Well, then you meet the uniformed officers, and then you meet the guys wearing the white shirts and the ties. And then the district attorney weighs in, and guess who's up for election this year, and maybe could use a conviction.
Yeah,
that can all become a thing. This whole came to me. This point came to me. I encountered a gentleman. I tried to help him through his problems a little bit. Fine man in Indiana. He's home early from work, cooking for his wife, and dinner is going to be ready before she shows up, which is, I understand, major husband points if you're into that sort of thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's
major. Well, he hears her car pull in, and he's like, "I'm such a stud. This is great." Then he hears her scream. Well, that's not normal. So he went and looked, and when he looked out the window, what he saw was his next door neighbor was beating his own wife with a baseball bat. So I thought, well, I cannot let that stand.
Wait, real quick, hold on.
Yep.
The next door neighbor was beating his own wife?
His own wife,
Okay.
the neighbor's wife. All right.
Okay.
So he went back, retrieved his pistol, came out, and when he came back out, he watched as his next door neighbor picked up his own daughter and chucked her. And then he grabbed the bat and was using it as a choking lever on his wife, on his own wife. So he drew down on him, bade him to cease and desist. And he dropped the bat, and he go over there and sit down. The cops are on the way. Well, one of the things I teach is that emotional states can be very transitory. Very transitory. And the longer the guy sat there, the angrier he got. Like, you wouldn't shoot me. Fuck, you wouldn't shoot. No, you wouldn't do that. So he stood up and walked toward him. He was wrong. He got shot. And naturally, about the time the shot fades and the piece of brass hits the ground and rolls around, the first black and white shows up. This guy is immediately like held at gunpoint, cuffed and stuffed, put in the back of the car. And he said a good 3 hours to contemplate the fact that he had just mortgaged his future and his family's future on that intervention.
Mm-hmm.
These are things he had not considered beforehand. The first indication that it was going his way was when an officer came in to use the MDT, and she turned to him and said, "You know, those people think you're a hero, right?" Then she left the car. That was the first glimmer of hope that he had that maybe he wasn't going to be going to prison. Shockingly enough, in this case, the district attorney actually drove to the scene, took the statements, and said there will be no further dispensation in this case. This was obviously legitimate use of lethal force. And that happens about once every 5 billion years.
I was going to say, where is that? Because I mean,
somebody needs to start playing the lottery.
Yeah.
Another incident in Indiana, I believe, as well. A woman's driving home, sees a police officer getting the snot beaten out of him. She pulls over, produces her pistol, cranks off a shot, hits the guy in the shoulder. It might have hit the subclavian. I don't know. He bleeds out. The police department thanked her very much and set up a GoFundMe account for her defense. Because shithead's family sued.
Yeah.
One of the videos I have up there is on third-party interventions. And if you are a high responder, you better if you're gonna be run with the big dogs, you better not be a Chihuahua. You got to know what you're getting involved in, because you can be a hero, you can be a zero, and you can wind up dead. And the jewelry store won't give a shit that you died defending their inventory.
Right. Well, obviously things aren't worth dying over. People are. But besides that, when you talk to law enforcement, and they'll tell you, hey, listen, domestics are one of the worst things to show up to, right? Because you're a hero one minute and a zero the next minute. And the only person who's judging that is the lady who is just getting her face beat in until she realizes that you're hurting her man, and now she's back on his team. The whole thing switches.
Most interesting advice I ever got from a cop was be a firefighter. Well, because and the premise to that statement that he made was a very astute observation.
Everybody loves firefighters.
Well, everybody loves firefighters, but he said when you're a cop and you show up, you are guaranteed that 50% of the people that are involved in that situation are going to hate you.
Among the luckiest strokes of luck I've had in my life, besides prom night 1980, was not being hired by the LAPD in 1996. I had just left the Corps. I was in between jobs. I was a month behind on a credit card bill, so they wouldn't touch me until I got that fixed. Well, I found another opportunity and moved on. But I cannot imagine what the last 25 years of my life would have been like. And I got that job. I think it was if you read Greg Lefferts's Facebook pages at all, I think I lucked out massively in that regard. Massively. And God bless the guys that, men and women that do that job. And it's just where we are. What's happening right now is it's interesting.
It's a boiling point, right? Things have been brewing to this crescendo for a minute. And you don't have to be a doomsday prepper, a crazy believer in Bigfoot alien guy to understand that, man, people have been stuffed in their houses for the last 6 or 7 months. The economy is in the toilet by many people's regards. Those of us who have seen some sort of, any kind of strife in work or professional or whatever part of your thing that you place so much emphasis on. People place so much emphasis on their careers and their livelihoods and all that in the first place. And then that's affected negatively, and then civil unrest and all political and all this stuff. There's a boiling point in a lot of places in this country. And yet you can lose 40% of your revenue in this country and still be doing better than most places on the planet by a wide margin. And some of us forget that, right? So here in my household, right, we lost a career and found another one, right? The wife loses her gig. I pick up a third job because what does daddy do but pick up third jobs? And now she gets to stay at home with the baby while I do the other thing. Oh, well.
That's what we do. That's what we do here.
That's what we do, right? And yet some people have used that as an excuse to fuel their otherwise ridiculous nonsense behavior, right? And listen, nobody deserves to get shot for no reason by the police. And yet, statistically speaking, I could think of like a few people who have ever been shot for no reason by the police. And here we are, right? So now we're in a state where all of our phones, I'm sure yours is as crazy as mine is. If you hang out a shingle that says firearms training of any kind, oh my God, they, insert whoever they are here, are coming to get us, whoever we are, right? And we need a what? We need a gun. We need a GUN like yesterday.
Every one of these conversations I've had and the emails tinged with desperation.
Yes.
I've thought, and a recurring theme is I've been thinking about this for 8 or 9 years.
Yep.
Blah, blah, blah. And now suddenly I have to have a gun and I want X. And I'm like, well, you must have seen the Facebook meme by now. If you want, you're 6 months late to have a choice, pal.
Yeah.
You might get that Savage Stevens single shot break shotgun in 410 and be happy with it. It's an amazing time for the industry. It's an amazing time for the country. It's just it's interesting times, if I may use the Chinese curse, as it were. Interesting times.
Yeah. That all being said, I believe that we as Second Amendment advocates, we as trainers, and we as media people that are putting out information in this realm are presented with a unique opportunity here. And that opportunity would be to represent the cause, the culture, the people, places, and things that make up what we've all been doing for the last 10 or 15 or more years, that we've cared so much about. We have the opportunity to represent this in the light that it deserves. Do we not?
Absolutely. And the responsibility,
Yes.
I think. And the market will out. People are coming to us right now, and this is an opportunity to present relevant training for the realities that people face. Minimize the flying hatchet attacks a bit. Maximize. Hey, this is what it looks like before it happens. Oh, by the way, if someone says this to you, consider saying, "Hey, you know what? You're right," and then just leaving.
Yep.
And then work on your pre-decisions. If we go delve back into the training realm a bit, I mean, now that they're coming to the decision that I need a gun, well, that's great. That is just one decision now, which will cause an entire cascade beneath it. I need a gun. Well, I'll need a gun for what? And then what? And then what? But what if this and what if that? And if they what if things, our job is to be the what if people.
Yes, it is.
And I will frequently start out classes by saying, you're coming to me for all the answers, and I got news. I don't know all the questions,
Yeah.
but I'm always asking. So what if? What if this? What if that? And once you have your pre-decisions for whatever circumstance, like for instance, third-party intervention. There are some things. If I'm in Old Town Alexandria and two young men have decided to square off and have at each other, that for me at my age is a popcorn watching event.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, oh geez, oh there it is, there's the choke. All right. If, however, a child is being abused, beaten up, or something, or there is someone walking through the neighborhood lighting it up with an AK. All right, I've got pre-decisions in place for that, so that's great. You can have all those pre-decisions you want, but then you have to have the skills combined with the tactics.
Mm-hmm.
And then it all comes. It will devolve around to time and timing. When we acquire our skills to support our tactics, we have to have in our mind, based upon that framework of pre-decision, the time we will execute that skill, and the time. This is where the timer comes out. The time it takes for me to move 3 feet to the right and fire 2 shots high center mass. And then it becomes a timing issue. Time and timing. So we have to set conditions to apply our skill, knowing how long it takes for me to do that, to perform that task, and then the timing decision behind implementing that actual task. And that is another facet I like to delve into in my classes, time and timing. So I will do things. How fast on a visual cue? How quickly can you move those 3 feet to the right and deliver those 3 shots high center mass at say 3 yards? Reach across, exchange, and then I'll simulate that. The condition has been set. When you see the red, I've got the red. We're back to the lasers again. The red light, and then when you get the green light, that is the timing. He is now deflecting. He has transitioned from terrorizing you to getting his payday. That is your opportunity. Or another opportunity or other considerations. You're seated in a restaurant and it's a takeover robbery, and you wait for that magic moment. Time and timing. That's another thing I like to emphasize in my training. And it all derives, it stems from pre-decisions, visualization, and it all comes back to that one decision. Yes, I am going to be responsible for myself, and I'm going to buy a gun, and I'm going to seek training. That is that. When people cross that Rubicon, that is where we have won.
Yep. And it is incumbent upon us in those moments when they find us, and they are finding us, they're finding all of us, to be the best version of us that we can be, right? Because, God damn it, they barely got here in the first place. If it was a hike, they didn't show up with their brand new Patagonia shit on, with their brand new boots and feeling good. they showed up barefoot with their T-shirt ripped up and almost didn't make it to the cabin in the first place, right?
Looking like a stunt double from The Revenant.
Exactly. And yet here they are, and they're terrified. Literally, they came to this decision out of fear, and then they find the guy. And who's the guy? Well, the guy's you, the guy's me, the guy's so many of our other professional colleagues and people all around this country who do great work. Or is he or is she? Is this person just running a puppy mill and doing the nonsense and just, yeah, you should be terrified. Pay me another $29.95 for the next 20 hours, and I'll tell you how terrified you should be. It becomes one of these things where they don't know what they don't know, and they end up just the shotgun pattern out, and they all find someone. It's incumbent upon us to be the best version of ourselves we can be and bring as many of the fold of their flock, their people, their other friends, family, coworkers, relatives, whoever we can bring in. And what we have to realize is that the words we say to John Doe's student are going to matriculate their way into the lives of as many as 10, 15, 20 other people. Even if we don't reach them in class, even if that guy never comes to class with the wife or the girlfriend or the kids or the whoever, now he's the expert in that core group.
Exactly.
And he's turning around and he's saying, well, Kent or John or, Frank or Tim or T, whoever said XYZ, so that's what we're going to do around here. It's almost as though, the scene in the movie where he holds up the slates of rocks and I have these 15 I have these 10 commandments, right? They all left the temple on the mount and they came down from the temple and went their different directions. And I still have some imposter syndrome thinking I'm the guy at the top of the temple they're coming to talk to. And how could you not? How could you not double think on that?
We are all the sum of our instructors.
Sure.
Living with our own personalities and perspectives. I am very fortunate. The lineage I've drawn from, Farnham, Rogers, Louis Arbuck. That is the era. I've had other stuff, Craig, Kelly McCann, and everybody. I think decent human beings who are involved in this business will feel a tinge of the imposter, regardless of their background, because there's always someone somewhere. Oh, gee, you mentioned Jared Reston earlier. All right, there is a guy who's been there and done that multiple occasions. That is proven above, in that realm, in that environment. Anybody, if I were to take one of his classes and then in turn, hey, I got this from Jared, unless you give absolute attribution, you're always going to feel that moment of, am I misrepresenting what I am and what I'm teaching here? Yep. Attribution is crucial.
Yep. Jedi quotes Langdon all the time. That the best teachers are the best thieves. To maintain honor, give credit where credit's due. Right. That's all you can do.
Absolutely.
And yet still, regardless of citing your sources and regardless of doing it all the quote unquote the right way or your best version of the right way at the time, because the other point to this is if this weekend's class is the same as the next 20, you're probably doing it wrong. If you're not making tweaks, if you're not working on, hey, man, that guy, I don't know if he got that or not. I might have to rework the way I say things, or I might have to call somebody. I might have to get on the phone and ask. I might have to re-listen through the last 50-some episodes of a freaking podcast with professional instructors I've done to make sure I didn't miss something somewhere.
What I have find myself doing when I had those thoughts of, did I reach that guy really?
Yep.
I'll give it a day or two and call him up.
Yep.
And say, hey, I'm going down to the range this weekend for like a skill build, development session. You got some time? I'd like to maybe tweak you a bit.
Yep.
And that carries a lot of weight with people. That we are not just running puppy mills. We are not interested in throughput, and that they are a I don't want to say a finished product, a work in progress that we have touched and that we're concerned about.
Yeah, it's been one of the most amazing things to me in my journey in this pursuit. How many of us, and I used to be afraid of even saying us to put myself in the same group, and I still get a little imposter-y on that. I don't know, am I one of those dudes yet? I have no idea. But here's what I do know. I can't tell you the number of people who broke their ass and broke their back to try to make me a better version of myself and helped me and went out of their way and did the things that you're describing, right? The teacher who picks up the phone or picks up the text or responds to the email or the DM, and I'll call one out. I'll call somebody else out for a change. Tim Herron. I threw Tim Herron a text message on transitions. Hey, dude, I'm having some trouble with my transitions. I don't think I'm seeing the dot the way I think I should be, and I'm honestly I'm letting some rounds go in the middle of the transition before I should be, right? And I don't like that. It's happened to me twice in the last 3 weeks. And that gives me the heebie-jeebies. What am I doing wrong? So first of all, I call up the competitive trainer dude to ask about my defensive concepts, which makes way more sense than you really think it does, because he's so good at driving the Ferrari that he could talk to you about what it feels like when the clutch slips a little bit, which is what's happening in my case. And damn it if the dude doesn't get on the phone and spend an hour and 45 minutes with me on his own time and his own dime. And damn it if he doesn't follow up with me in 2 days and go, yo, did you go do that yet? Yeah, I did. It brought me to another. Hell, it resulted in 4 interactions before the light bulb clicked. And I'm like, fuck, yeah, you know what? He's right.
And he held you accountable by that call back.
Absolutely.
There are 2 people I'm making an effort in the next year I've got to train with, would be Gabe White and Tim Herron. I am remiss in that regard. Where I've been working primarily on your stuff with my mentor Tom Givens.
Yep.
And he is kicking me like in the ass. Get more. In fact, Tom just ran a series of Facebook posts. Here are my after action reviews from the classes I took this last year.
I've been reading all of them,
and I'm like, damn, am I failing again?
So you are hereby invited to one of the 2 Tim Herron classes I will be hosting in the next year. You are my guest. You come here. Come on up.
I'll just need to know when.
Oh yeah, we'll get that done offline. Right. July 11th, I believe, is the first one.
Let me check the big board. Uh-oh. Nope. We'll figure it out. We're smart.
Yeah. We'll make it happen. But I got him coming twice this year, and my basement has been full of the greats so far. So park your RV out front, and he'll be in the basement. I mean, let's just do this, right? You're more than welcome.
All right.
I love it when guys like that do for their students, and we all know I try to do for mine. We all try to do like what you said. I was just with a gentleman who I haven't seen in months, and like you said, holding them accountable is a big part of this, because you get a guy, a private student, et cetera, has got a summer home, a winter home, that whole thing, and he does the flip flop thing, and he just flipped his flop, and he's got another competent, capable, squared away trainer that he's working with on the other side of the flop, right? And hey, how's so and so doing, holding you accountable on X, Y, and Z? And he's like, I was afraid that you were going to ask me that question. I'm like, all right, well, guess what we're doing tonight? Guess what we're doing, right?
We're back to flipping.
Yeah, it's time. 3, 2, 1, now. Let's go. And it's always nice to be able to be that positive influence for somebody. That being said, we also sometimes fail our students miserably in one way or another. Not in a safety realm, or in a we endanger them ridiculously, or we have them do some stupid you go down there and stand by the tree and I'll knock the apple off your head. I'm not talking about any ridiculousness like that.
Wait, I'm the only one you may do that?
Yeah, well, that was for YouTube. Can you relate or think back on a time where you really left something out there and you wanted it fixed?
Yep. Just this last Sunday, I'm gonna fix that. Intermediate barriers and glass. I had a little logorrhea and was reaching for something I should have just left. Better said or unsaid, or definitely differently approached. I'm going to fix that via email here shortly. Pulling back, I have learned that there's nothing I can say that cannot be misunderstood by a well-meaning individual.
Oh my God, yeah.
And I think I've got my range commands down to where the 99.9%. I will brief a drill. I will demonstrate a drill. Movement, shooting, whatever. I'll rebrief. I'll get head nods all the way up and down. And then we'll execute as a firing line. And I'll have 12 people on the firing line, and 11 will do exactly what I had briefed and demonstrated and rebriefed. And the 12th will head off to my safety boundaries. And at the conclusion, I'll like come up and I'll hug them and like, what the fuck were you thinking? And they'll explain it to me. I'm like, from a warped, twisted perspective, that's kind of a point. I gotta tweak my. You said X, I interpreted X. It's when they do the algebra shit is when they get start fucking up.
Yeah.
When I say X, they do XA to the fifth power exponentials. Overthinkers can be a problem. In fact, I had a student a few weeks ago. It was like, why? Yes, I am overthinking. Why would you ask? It was on her shirt. She came free advertised that way. It was kind of amusing. Then subsequently, I've also got to the point where I'll have a class. I'll get a read of who I got in the first few minutes. I can pick out the lawyers and the engineers every time. It with like JDAM precision. Pick out the engineers. These people tend to be very precise, and they got to drill down to not just the how, but deep into the why. And people like that are great value to any instructor because it helps them reach another audience and gives another perspective of explaining side picture. I hosted Tatiana Whitlock a few weekends ago, and she did a masterful job of breaking down sights and angles and human eye interaction. It was brilliant, and well worth the time. By hosting other people, I get to see other approaches, and by getting feet, I learn more from my students than they learn from me every class. And the day that stops happening is the day I think it's time to park that RV at the beach somewhere.
There you go. I like it.
So we are coming up on that magical part of the 90 minutes.
I can't believe it's been that long. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, I'll tell you what, man, this has been a fantastic conversation. But we do have a question from one of our viewers, Mikey Butson. He's a regular viewer, friend of the show. He asked, John, what is your best advice for a young man?
I would have to quote the Kipling poem. And I will leave it to Mikey to look it up. But if you can keep your head when all those about them are losing theirs, fill a minute with 60 seconds run. That would be a fine guideline to go. And just be your own man. Seek other men of like mind with similar goals. For me, I found it on the Yellow Footprints. But it's a Marine Corps thing, and now I'm looking to find that same out here in the civilian world, such as it is, and just fill the minute with 60 seconds run. I'm going to quote a little Roosevelt here as well. I intend to spend myself in a worthy course.
I like it. Roosevelt's a good one to quote too. Man, I tell you what, this has been one of those podcasts that we're going to have to do a part 2 of. I hope you'll come back and endeavor us with that, because it's been really awesome so far.
When I get on the road, anywhere I can get a Wi-Fi spot, pal.
Heck yeah,
In my little cross tech tooling about.
that's great.
Go ahead.
So we like to end the show in a new way these days. One of the first things that we're asking everybody who comes on the show at the end is to pick a charity. So would you be so kind as to do that?
Oh, holy cow! For me, it's Wide Smiles.
Okay.
It's a cleft palate charity.
Okay.
All right.
There's one we haven't hit yet.
There's a couple of them out there like that. But that's the way I usually go.
All right. So let's find Wide Smiles.
I've already got it. I've already got it.
Sweet, man. So this is like the little guest surprise.
There you go.
So John, we will be donating the t-shirt proceeds and sales and so forth for the next couple of weeks to the charity of your choosing, which is apparently Wide Smiles. So any of our sarcastic, fun, funny, gun-related or otherwise t-shirt sales that you folks might want to pick up, we'll funnel the money from ourselves out of Teespring to a worthy cause. And the cleft palate thing, get it, right? Makes sense.
Yeah. So wearing the t-shirt, pal.
Hey, man, you do for a person with that as their ailment, you do a hell of a job presenting yourself and speaking for a living. So God bless you, right? Good on you.
It was work.
I'm sure. That being said, cleft palates, TJ's got the link in the description and all that good stuff. So if you're hearing this, you'll be able to scroll to the bottom and do one of either two things. Buy one of our t-shirts and we'll donate to them, and you get a free t-shirt out of the deal. And if you're inclined just to give to them directly, please do so. And
widesmiles.org.
There you go.
Yep, link is in the description.
Widesmiles.org. And in the name of our guest, John Murphy, there you go, folks at Wide Smiles.
Not necessary.
No, we know, but we can't sell T-shirts any other way, so we might as well give them away for charity.
There you go.
Bless them, right?
God bless
them. If only
them.
we had a better design crew.
Oh, zing!
That was on him.
No, that's me.
Yeah, Tim. All right.
That was a completely self-deprecating comment.
No, the T-shirts are great. It's just, people don't buy things. Buy the things.
It's a flooded market. What do you want from me?
Yeah, but we have to have our own T-shirts because, that's the podcasting overview. That's
I hear they pull your card.
There you go.
At least do T-shirts.
So that's the first question. The second question, and we touched on this earlier, recommended reading list.
Definitely add some Kipling in there. Gates of Fire by Pressfield is a good one. I will throw in. I'm working my way through it right now. Varg Freeborn's book, Violence of Mind.
Yep.
I might have to look over. I got the thing over here. Deadliest Men. And I'm having a dumb attack on. I hate when this happens. You people always do this to me. I do read. I do. Honestly, I do. It was a collaboration book with John Hearn, Masad Ayub, Tom Gibbons, and William April, and a host of others. I'd have to leave the camera. It's right over there.
Leave the camera because I haven't heard of this one
yet.
Hang
on a second.
I'm interested.
Dude.
He said you people, and you didn't respond like the angry ginger that you usually do.
You
mean, you people?
Yeah, it's our word.
Straight talk on armed self-defense.
Okay. And that's the collaboration piece.
Right. April Artwell, Ayub, Spencer Blue, just Craig Douglas, Tom Gibbons, Marty Hayes, John Hearn, and a cast of thousands.
Yeah, that's a who's who. That could probably be considered the Bible.
You can see I've got mine. I'm marking it up right now, going through lots of marks. It is very much a good focusing tome. There are some others out there that escape me at the moment. Oh, one I would throw out there is To Hell and Back by Audie Murphy. No relation.
Hmm.
If you want to know what a malnourished 19-year-old kid can do, that's what he can do.
Yep. Interesting story.
Yeah,
So
the world needs a few more Audie Murphys, man.
No question.
So it's come upon that time, John. Sincerely, you've given us the most valuable commodity that we can give each other, which is time. I very much appreciate that. You're highly recommended and highly praised by all of your peers that you've interacted with and encountered, which says good things. And most importantly, you're pretty funny and fun to hang out with for an hour and a half. So,
well, I've appreciated the opportunity very much.
We should do more of this. You made a Facebook post joking about a little self-deprecating humor about we must be scraping the bottom of the barrel because of all the greats or whatever that we've had on here. My God, 4 episodes, and I'm honored every time, every single time to have somebody of your caliber, if you'll pardon the pun, come on here and have any sort of a discussion with us yahoos whatsoever, let alone give us an hour and a half and be so giving with your time, your effort, your energy, and your info. So I sincerely thank you for that. That being said, we have a lot of other people to sincerely thank as well. And we do this the way we do it for a reason. We save the ad read for the end, so it doesn't sound like a bunch of infomercials and nonsense. But there's a lot of folks that have helped us along the way. We would be remiss if we didn't mention Right On Optics. TJ and I are happy to be pro staff members for them. If you're looking for high quality optics and some new and exciting things by an American company, you'll have to check them out at some point, rightonoptics.com. We've got a host of affiliates where you can buy shooting gear from friends of ours such as Primary Arms, Brownells, and others. greenmountaindefense.com/affiliate-links is where you can find that stuff. So if you're looking to purchase high quality firearms related carry gear, et cetera, please go see our friends. That helps us with a small percentage on this end to be able to bring you this high quality, free to you, the viewer and listener content. So please check out the affiliate links there as well. John made it a point to bring up that a big part of his POI in his curriculum is medical. That being said, if you don't have the tools, you can't use the software. And if you don't have the software, you can't use the tools. You can get both of them from our friends at Dark Angel Medical. Kerry Davis is
lovely people.
One of the leaders in that business. Code BB15 will get you 15% off at his store, and mention in the order notes that Sling'N Led podcast sent you. We're getting no kickbacks on anything like that. But God forbid you should ever have to. You can add yourself to the list of saves that Kerry has that is ever growing. And if you heard my voice say it and you decided to go buy that tourniquet and that tourniquet kept you here for another, God knows how long, then that's all very good. Take the training as well, though. Don't just go on there and buy the thing and think you have the thing and now you're good. Look up Kerry and other quality medical trainers around the country and find your way in. If nothing else, take a freaking Stop the Bleed class, for God's sakes. They're free.
In stereo, they're free.
Free, right? And they're usually taught by like doctors, just not Kent, like a doctor. Doctor. You get the idea. So anyway, code BB15 for Kerry Davis, Dark Angel Medical. We've been supported by so many of our friends in the industry, firearms training companies, instructors, et cetera, your Jedis and your Herons and your Tims and Apache and all these folks, Phil Groff, Vigor. If you're hearing the sound of my voice and for whatever reason you can't come to one of my classes or attend physically or et cetera, or I'm not offering what you think you need, and if you're my alumni and you haven't heard me say this for about the 17th billionth frickin' time, go see other people anyway. And you're looking for a list of who we recommend, maybe listen and watch the show, and that'd be a good first clue. And if their names are on here and they've been given an hour and a half to expound upon their wares and their awesomeness, it's probably because we know either from direct or from third-party sources that they're legit. So you should probably consider that. Here local to me, man, you got Ashton Ray out west, you got Phil Groth north and east of me, and you got myself here. I will submit myself to their training and their curriculum anytime I get the chance. You also have Sam DeSimone of Evolution Training Solutions. go see these guys here on the local level. We're not competitors, we're friends, and we deal with each other in a very Rotarian, mutual respect kind of way, and a less of a Walmart versus Kmart kind of a way. So go enjoy that stuff and go see those guys. The guys, Tim and the crew from Apache, have been big supporters, and we've traded AIs and friends and partnerships, and I'm going down there. They're coming up here, all that good fun stuff. So if you're in the South, and I hate to tell you this, but I don't give a shit if you're in the South or not. Get on a plane and go see Apache Solutions. I'm not kidding. It will be one of the next bigger things in the training community. That there'll be those guys that 5 years ago you never heard of, and now all of a sudden they're killing it. Mm-hmm. So pay attention to that and get in while the getting's good. Before Tim is famous and has, God knows what, ebooks and whatever else out there, and he's retired.
An office that smells of rich mahogany.
Right. One of those deals. But in all seriousness, I'm continuously humbled by the folks that have graced the show and have helped us in some way. And you're on the good guys list now, my friend. John, if you ever need anything, if there's anything we can do to help you at all, any way we can help promote, any way we can help do anything, send students your way, whatever it is that we could do, we're honored and privileged to have had you here and do it. TJ, you wanna do your outro and we'll get the heck out of here?
Yeah, man, absolutely. John, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you, as Kent mentioned. Folks, once again, please support the show. Head on over to the affiliate links page on greenmountaindefense.com. That's greenmountaindefense.com/affiliates-links. You're going to buy gun shit anyway. You might as well buy it and support your local friendly neighborhood podcasters. With that, Kent really kind of covered it all, but I do want to remind you to hit us up on Facebook, Sling'N Led Podcast. You can see additional content. Kent and I typically try to post pictures every week. You can reach out to us, chat with us, ask your questions. You might just even have your question aired on the show. We love a live chat. We love your questions. We love curating them to our guests for you. So please, by all means, check out the podcast. Tell your friends. Get them here on the live show every Tuesday night, and we are bound to have a good time and learn together. But that's it for us this week, folks. Until we see each other again, God bless you all. Take care of each other and get out and shoot.